Hello everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of the Top Tier Tiers podcast. I'm Alfred, and we've got Tom with me. Today we're going to talk on a far more specific topic in relation to a recent tournament, a recent trios tournament, actually, right?
Yes.
Yes. So recently, Houston happened in Texas in the US. And while a lot of teams battled valiantly and it was a very big turnout, there was who won again? It was Ryan's team, right?
Yeah.
SBTCG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But did you make top eight, or I forget what happened?
We did make top eight. We lost to
Very,
Ryan's team in top eight.
very nice. But I thought we'd go over very briefly your deck choice specifically because trios is a format everyone enjoys, but I think that well we can talk about that later too. We can talk about how it might not be the most competitive format ever, but it does have a slightly different metagame to what singles might be. And because of that, deck choice is a little bit different. That being said, a good deck is still a good deck, and the deck you chose is a deck that a lot of people probably don't think is a very good deck. I personally think it's around top five in English, probably solidly top five depending on the metagame. But we'll let you talk about the deck and what you ran.
Yeah, sure. I wouldn't disagree that it's around top five, maybe one of the weaker ones for sure. Um, so for those not in the know, trios is a format where every player has to play a different deck from a different series. Can't I think is it different series or they can't share card? I think it's different series.
It is actually different series. There wasn't one of the original Japanese trios only said you could only play a max four of any card, so closer to the Magic formats where everyone like
Mm,
the unified modern where you could split like fetch lands and stuff. But in Weiss, I think you actually need three different Neo Standard series.
yes. All right. So yeah. So for our team, we had been thinking about our team composition for a bit. We did not get to participate in Ontario, which was Ontario, California's Springfest, which was unfortunate. But we had been thinking about our team composition for a while, and for a long time we had been set on Hololive Mushoku Slime, I believe, or Bang Dream. It was either Bang Dream or Slime. We were like the debated topic was the third slot. Hololive and Mushoku were pretty much a lock. Um, I was supposed to play Hololive actually, but maybe like what, a week and a half, 2 weeks before the lists were due, I was able, or UA was convinced that Fate was worth giving it a go. Um, and the reason why is because Fate has a pretty good Hololive matchup actually, against almost all Hololive decks. And that's mainly because it is one of the only decks in English at the moment that runs a removal bomb as its main plussing level 0.
You
And I'm
also
gonna
don't really care about level two quite as much as some decks.
yes, yeah. Fate is pretty flexible that way. Um, so the main reason UA really liked this concept, and what we ended up
But
building.
before we go on, sorry, who were your teammates?
Yeah, so my teammates were Yue Peng, the owner of Strictly Broken TCG, and
Yep.
a Vancouver local, British Columbia local, Ethan Cho.
Oh, Ethan.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah, well
Cool.
known within that
That
community, not so well known outside of that community because he was out of the game for like maybe like 3 years, I think, at this point.
what
Like
was
he
it? The
he
COVID
started
years,
playing,
or
huh?
was it the COVID years, or?
Yeah, basically. Um,
Mm.
a little not because of COVID. I think he stopped playing like before the 2019 year, and then all
Hmm.
throughout that year, 2020, 2021, and then this year he's coming back, which is great. He's a good player. He's a great player, actually. Probably the best. I would say he's the best one on our team. Um, but he was on Mushoku. So once we decided we were gonna try and make a Fate list, the composition was switched up a little bit. I would be playing Fate, I guess, obviously, but
'Cause you own the cards, and
I
it's
own the
also
cards and I've played the deck
not
for a
the
while.
exactly like it's not the easiest deck ever to pick up. It's not a difficult deck in my opinion, but once you've gone past the deck building anyway. But it's better for someone with experience to take the deck. That always trumps everything else, right?
Of course, yeah. And UA had quite a bit of experience playing Hololive too, so putting him on Hololive all of a sudden wasn't a huge issue because he had been playing it alongside 8 Choice Slime, which was supposed to be, we had settled on 8 Choice Slime, but we decided to switch to Fate. And I'm gonna be showing the concept on screen right now using Decklog, but and
Hmm.
Alfred can't see it, of course, but he has the list in front of him, so we're just gonna, I guess. Is there anything
I
else about
have
Fate
actually
that was
about
compelling?
Fate. Um,
Uh,
I mean, we should talk very briefly about what Fate does and why it is actually a contender deck, as well as its strengths and weaknesses.
sure.
So like you said, early on, I think you said that you said plussing level 1 when you actually meant plussing level 0, right?
No, I said plussing level 0.
Oh, did you? All right, I must
Yeah, I
have
did.
misheard. So the deck that Tom chose to bring is a little bit different from what a lot of people might consider to be the meta Fate deck of 8 doors. He's actually got 8 bar and 8 door. Sorry, 4 bar, 4 door. And okay, so here's the confusing bit. Fate is it's a patchwork monstrosity of a series where there are heaps of different viable builds. And while the consensus among the tippy top competitive players is largely a little mixed, most people have more or less dismissed Fate because if you look at like the community tier lists, if you look at how people regard the deck as kind of like a curiosity more than anything, you'll see that people don't really understand why Fate is quite as good. So the reason Fate is good is, if you want the short version, it's because it is a good free freshing deck, which is something that very few decks boast. But to be more specific about it, and decks need to have more strengths than just one thing, it actually has some pretty good utility at most levels. It has some incredibly strong cards at wait. Did you just not play Rider at all?
Which Redder?
Level
Level
2.
3, level 2? No, we did not. We did not run the Redder.
Okay, I guess if you're running the level 3 Rin, that's fine. But the other reasons why Fate is quite strong are it's got some very strong removal options at literally every level, actually. Uh, it it doesn't have a good level 1 bomb, but other than that, it can deny people resources. It can play very consistent and very stock efficient. Uh, well, I guess you call them assassins. Like I'm talking about 2/1 Rider here,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and just generally speaking, it has enough to get it over the line while playing climaxes very frequently. So it's a very competent 1k 1 soul deck, and it has a pretty decent Mushoku matchup, or rather, you can gear it to have a pretty decent Mushoku matchup.
Right.
Uh, it's mm,
On that note, we decided that the Mushoku matchup was likely a losing one regardless, like maybe like slightly losing at best. So we tooled the deck to be maximized against Hololive and any other 1k1 matchups that we might face. Um, um, we just kind of like cut our losses with regards to Mushoku,
yeah,
essentially. Yeah.
this is why trios is different, because in Neo Standard or singles, you would expect Mushoku to make up a hefty amount of the later Swiss rounds because a lot of good players will be on Mushoku. And in Weiss, at this point in time anyway, good players will tend to win out, even if their decks aren't amazing. But good players also tend to pick good decks. So you're likely to see a lot of very standard 8 standby Mushoku in the later rounds of Swiss. That is absolutely not the case in trios. at most you'll only ever see like um well, you're not favored to see a huge amount of Mushoku. At most, you have to win like a bunch of 33%. And even then, some people, like for example, I know that another team with Riaz Muhammad, one of is he reigning world champion currently? Is he technically still
Technically
world champion?
yes. Technically
Yes.
yes, I
So
think. Yeah.
because of COVID, technically still world
Mm-hmm.
champion. He was in the tournament as well, and he ran Choice Pants Mushoku, or rather Choice Arch, or whatever you want to call it. So point is, you can't rely on focusing down the meta to any specific degree. You want to kind of have as good a matchup spread as possible, which means that favoring consistent decks such as Mushoku, such as slime decks with a Riki, such as Fate is fairly consistent too because most of its level zeros get it going. That's more preferable than getting a deck specifically tooled to beat one certain deck, like for example, the Bofuri deck that it was tooled only to beat Standby would not be a deck that I would strongly consider in a trios tournament because as soon as you hit a non-standby deck, your matchup is at best like 40-60, which in like for people who aren't quite used to card game or competitive matchups, 40-60 doesn't sound so bad, but it's pretty bad because little edges matter a lot in card games. So
Uh
yeah, you go on.
hmm. I feel like there are arguments for the other case as well because wins and losses, you're kind of insulated from the impact of individual wins and losses. So selling out to, you know,
I mean that applies no matter what you pick though.
oh yeah, of course. Um,
So like regardless of
yeah,
what you pick, that's going to be the case. So you should just pick things with good matchup spreads, and then also pick
sure,
ideally
yeah,
the quote unquote best deck in format.
yeah, and for I guess for a little bit of clarification, it's not like um we picked this deck. Uh, we wouldn't have picked this deck if we thought the Mushoku matchup was unwinnable. And we also wouldn't have picked this deck if we thought that the deck could not win against decks other than Hololive, obviously. Because the odds of facing against Hololive is still only like 30% every round, a little bit less than that because not everybody's gonna be running Hololive. But
But Hololive is also a pretty undefined quantity. Outside of like once you get to the
that's
later round, maybe you'll have more specific decks being seen, but I think Hololive, it's really a toss-up as to what is actually being played against you.
you mean the build of Hololive or?
I mean, the build of Hololive, yes.
Well, the thing about that is, this deck attacks Hololive where most Hololive builds converge, like where they run
Yeah,
the
which
same
is level
cards,
0, right?
which is the level 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. This deck is specifically designed to basically starve Hololive out of any resources, any easy resources they get from level 0.
Yeah.
Like from their level 0 Aqua, or like
Let,
their
let's
or
um let, let's explain quickly what cards we're talking about because not everyone's familiar with all of these.
sure.
So
So
Aqua is a when it dies, it's a pay one clock to add up to 2 cards from the top of your deck as long as they're characters, if I recall correctly.
yes, and it's
And the
also
way that
3,500 in the
is
center.
yes, and the way that that's denied is you play cards that send it to a zone other than the waiting room. And Fate actually plays it plays 4 of them. It plays 4 Spring Song Sakura, which is a level 0 500 power bomb. When it's reversed, you can send the opponent's level 0 card to clock, and then swap the top or bottom card of their clock or whatever, no, the top card of their clock. And also, if you don't have any other what is
No,
it
it's
again? If you don't
when
have any
when
other,
the card is reversed during the opponent's turn, uh, the player can pay 1 to rest it immediately, and then it dies at the beginning. It gets sent to the waiting room at the beginning of the player's next encore step.
yep.
Yep.
So it's also a plussing level 0, even if it is a little stock inefficient. The Fate deck is not particularly stock starved, so that's fine. But the important thing is, by doing this, you are not only preventing their level 0 from plussing in the conventional sense by staying on field, but you're preventing them from getting the possibly more impactful actual plus by just removing their card.
Hmm.
And Hololive players who just expect that drawing one Aqua will be enough to set them up for level 1 will find that their hand is going to be a lot smaller than normal because of
Oh,
this.
not just one Aqua, my friend. Not just one Aqua.
Sure,
It'll
because
be it'll be many Aquas denied, I think.
you are running 6 copies of Denial Bombs, because in addition
Yes.
to Spring Song Sakura, you are playing the Entrusted Arm of Archer Shiro, which is also the exact same thing, but with it doesn't plus. Instead, when it is reversed, you can send it to memory.
Yep.
It's a little bit more complex than that, but that is effectively what the card does in this scenario.
Hmm.
So with that in
Um.
mind, you're targeting down Hololive as well.
Yeah. And I mean, some other Hololive builds like the Kanata build, they rely on a 2500 power on death pay one clock salvage, which also gets quite well addressed by
Right.
this list.
Yep.
Um, Another like there's also like what you call it. There's a level 0 Nene that some lists run that you can pay one, rest it, and then it goes to memory at the beginning of the next encore step. That also gets addressed by at least the Spring Song Sakura. And it also, and touching on that Nene for a sec, it brings us to the other reason why we thought Fate would be very strong in this meta, and that's the Rider Shiro card that's at 2 in this list.
The neg 1k power one.
Yeah, yeah. So that Shiro Rider Shiro card, you rest it to give one of your opponent's front row characters minus 1k power. And when you play Climax, you can give one of your characters 1k power as well.
1000 power. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Effectively like a split 2k power pump.
Which is important because you're running the level 1 bar combo. Um,
Yes.
it's a little out of favor with Fate players, because getting a reverse in a metagame with Mushoku is not the easiest thing in the world. You can usually get one reverse versus Mushoku, but if they high roll or if you low roll, that might be actually quite difficult.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got that here instead of the alternative, which is the level 1 Rin from Heaven's Field 2 that most people run. Uh, I think that if you're leaning all in on the level 0 Shiro Rider thingo, I don't know what you call this, because this is like a combination of effects that is deceptively powerful. Like cards like this have kind of been seen before, but not to the point where you can just kind of make it so one of your it's really powerful, right? To be able to make anyone's levels 1k or lower power front rows effectively an empty lane. That's just a
Right.
really
Yes.
powerful effect.
Yeah, it is. And obviously, we can talk a little bit about the Rider Shiro, or we can talk about the reason why I chose Sakura level 1. Uh,
Go for it.
yeah.
You know best.
Um. Uh. Just to finish off the Rider Shiro topic, I guess. I think this card probably should be run even with the Rin combo. To be honest, it's such a good card right now. Um, you you interact very favorably with a surprising amount of cards in the English meta right now. I think the most prominent of these will be the level 0 Nene that gets Hololive's memory engine going. But there's like a few other things. There are a few other cards that I thought, uh, you know, kind of suffered against Rider Shiro. I played against Bar Choice Sao in the tournament, and they were running the level 3 Asuna finisher with that memory condition. And there's a
That
very
memory condition is 500 power, right?
there's a very amusing sequence where I sent one of like they could not get a tie because they had to play a climax that turn. So they won over a lane with the card, expecting it to get reversed or whatever, right? I kill it with the Rider Shiro. They 3 stock because they had 6 stock at that point. I drop search for a second one, and I kill it again. And at that point, the my opponent was just like, "All right."
bro.
You got me.
That's almost BM, man. Nobody.
Oh my
So
god.
you don't ever see that sort of play in Weiss, right? You don't see plays where you go out of your way to starve your opponent of something because Weiss is a game where we're all kind of used to getting what we want, yeah?
Yeah.
So it's really, really jarring to have someone just not let you get what you want at all. That's I don't think it's something that's been seen prominently since oh well, since Attack on
Anti-heal,
Titan was
anti-salvage.
well,
Oh yeah, Aaron, of course. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. My mind went to anti-heal, anti-salvage, but yeah, Aaron is
I mean
obviously
that hasn't been well, I guess Grisaya is a thing.
and boomers, man. Weiss
Yeah.
boomers. But yeah, that was like that's obviously like a very extreme example, but one that I thought basically won me the game. Like at that point, uh, like at that point in the game, my opponent had 6 stock, and this card, like I mean, they didn't have to 3 stock. Obviously, they could have just cut their losses. But that card is super important for that's game plan. Like their finisher just does not work with that level without that level 0 memory. And
And it's not like it's worse or it's not like the stats are down. That card just literally has
yeah,
it's
it's just a
missing like
healer.
6 lines of text, right? Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
have
it's just a
any
healer.
text outside.
Um, and of course, you don't want to crash with a card like that. Um, especially because it clocks you to get sent to memory. So, uh, there are a lot of other, and not every interaction is going to be as favorable as that, obviously, but there are quite a few cards that are somewhat important to their deck's game plan that do get addressed by this card, such as level 0 Nene as well. So we felt in testing that this card was just really good, like very very good, and that's also part of the reason why we decided to make the call to cut a card that I think a lot of people might have expected in this list, but is not, which is the Shiro Global Clock Encore from UBW Set One. That is
No, I
not in
mean
this list.
I've spoken to a lot of people who have taken that card out, and their experience is that if you're running the Spring Song Sakura, paying 1 stock is really not that big a cost, and that card pluses enough of the time that you can just play a conventional level 1
Yeah.
anyway. Which I think
Yes.
is probably the arguable bigger reason why you don't necessarily need Avenger Shiro, because you have the 3/5 drop search Saber Alta and Spring Song Sakura as functioning plussing and also utility slots, and that also frees up a lot of your deck space.
Right. I'm speaking more to the layman who's not that familiar with Fate. I do know that the meta at the moment for Fate is to cut the Avenger or cut the Shiro, but not having
For
to
the record,
shuffle. Oh, sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
no, no, sorry. There are still builds which do run the Avenger. I
Yes.
think if you're running the Saber Door top end, Avenger it's a shoe in. It's your best yellow fixing. And I do think you can still make a strong argument for Avenger, but it's certainly not the auto include that it used to be. Because I think it's just Fate's gotten enough cards and the meta has become specific enough that you don't necessarily need to run it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's just a comment about not having to shuffle back row. So when you run this Shiro, um, there's often a very awkward transition phase where you kind of have to push this Shiro up, give up a lane maybe, or try and get a direct lane for that card to attack in. And that not having the Shiro in this list, we just kind of sidestep that issue entirely because the Shiro rider is just going to be living in our back row for the rest of the game once we get it. So
Um, I'll be honest, whenever I play Fate, I front row Avenger a lot, just straight up. I
yeah,
don't even put it in back row, and that's fine.
it's
It's like it's still pluses.
yeah. I just think it's a little awkward, especially for a card you run four. Like you kind of have to run 4 of that card, 3 to 4 of that card. It's a lot of slots.
Yeah,
Um,
you need 3 or 4, absolutely, but
yeah,
it's still
dedicated
it's
to a
yeah,
500 power card. It's a little awkward, I guess. Is I'll leave it at that, I guess, because like we were trying
but
to we tried very hard to fit that card into this list, and it just it just doesn't work. So
Well, I mean, if you play the Rin, then yeah, there's no room.
Yeah. And I guess we can talk a bit about the bar level one very briefly before we move on to the Rin.
Yeah, because this is
Uh,
it has fallen out of favor somewhat because well, a lot of people prefer not having to reverse to get their level one advantage. And also, if you're not playing 8 bar and the other bar combo is has also fallen out of favor, primarily due to Hololive, I'd say,
mhm.
then you don't really have as much consistency with the bar engine, with the Sakura level 0 brainstorm and the level 1 bombs, which let you filter out triggered bars if you don't want to play them.
Yeah. Um, I think the main reason why we decided to okay, well, number one, I'm biased. I'll admit it. I really don't like the door level one ring combo. I think it is. I think apart from the fact that it attacks the very high attack power, I just hate the combo itself.
Hmm.
Uh, it is what it is. But the other thing that we found we definitely ignoring that, obviously we're gonna, even if I don't like the card, I'm obviously going to invest some time into figuring out some builds that included this Rin level one combo. And what we found was, um, so the Sakura level zero brainstorm is a little awkward to fit. Well, it doesn't have a great place in these Rin focus lists because it's essentially just a vanilla tap self salvage brainstorm, right? Uh,
That's all it is,
Innate
yeah.
door.
But it's
Yeah,
at level 0, so
yeah, that's a
that's why
thing.
people play it.
So it was a little awkward to just have this level zero vanilla brainstorm, um, and also a little awkward to rely on the level one brainstorm that's in UBW. Sorry, Heaven's Field 2, the Rin one that gives Revenge 1K power whenever one of your characters is reversed. So we just felt
Which is
like it was a little awkward, kind of like gameplay wise, uh, trying to kind of navigate game states with these like two different brainstorms that don't actually do different things. They're both tap self salvage brainstorms, but one is obviously better, but the other comes out earlier. So we felt that it was a little bit of a challenge to maximize the effectiveness of that slot.
um, so if I may speak about this specific conundrum because it's one that I navigated as well. I found that my issues with it went down significantly when I just stopped fielding the brainstorm at level 0 and just in general. I just didn't do it unless I had to pay out a climax. And then that gave me the opportunity to into level 1 brainstorm by level 1 or do something of that sort. But I do agree with you that the level 0 brainstorm does not serve much of a role, especially if you are playing a high count of Spring Song Sakura, level 0 green clock bomb. Because the other reason you play the brainstorm is basically to fix 4 green cards. These include, I know there are several prominent European players who are strong proponents of the 1-1 stock swap, which needs 3 green characters on field,
Mm-hmm.
and they still play Rin combo. And that is like, how do you do that?
Mm.
Well, you basically play level 0 Sakura Brainstorm, you play the Shiro Rider, and then you play some other green card, either a Spring Song Sakura, or when you get to level 2, you can play 2-1 Rider. I always thought that was a real hassle to do. I tried that briefly. It actually did pan out in more games than I was expecting, but I had to go out of my way to do it, and it was also a situation where Stock Swap straight up won the game, so I went out of my way to do it. If you just want it available, I think that's very difficult. Now, I think the 1-0 Rin Brainstorm is actively quite decent. While it doesn't save very much at level 1, there are game plans at level 2 where you can finagle your way to saving things you might not otherwise save, especially if you're running level 3s that don't pump power. Like, I found it to be quite good in the Saber top end where you're running advanced plays like the Shiro from Heaven's Feel 1, because that card doesn't have any power natively. But if you give it a little bit of power here and there, it actually
Right.
does survive.
Um.
But in the conventional level 2s for Fate, I don't think it is as useful. So in the end, you're basically throwing up between two vanilla brainstorms based on color. And especially in your deck, which which has a very interesting level 2 that I think most people. Well, this isn't true. The Europeans are very big, well, at least some of them are very big fans of the early play you've chosen to play. But the caster support that you have is, I don't think that's widespread.
No. We can talk a bit about the caster, I guess.
I mean,
Um,
go for it. It's read out what it does because most
yeah,
people don't know what
sure.
it does.
Let me click on it in the list so we
You
can bring it up.
because you play it to change into the level 3, right? That's the only thing it does.
No. It also gives master characters in front 1k power and hand on core. Funny you should
Yeah.
ask.
It's a pretty great effect actually, especially on a level 3 that you want to survive and continue to have lots of power and kill things with, right?
Uh-huh. The power lines are great with this card. And that's primarily because Rin herself is 11,500 power without any before any assists or anything, because that's
Well,
just what she does.
you are counting the effect that she has, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because
I'm assuming that we're gonna get the resonate effect off.
okay,
Um,
let's back step a little bit. Rin is an 8,500 early play. She has a really good early play condition, but the reason she doesn't see play in every single Fate deck is because in order for her to have any sizable amount of power on either offense or defense, you need to have another card, the Gem Sword Zeldretch, whatever. Um,
Zelrech, not a
that
real
one,
Fate
yeah.
fan. What a faker.
Look, I only like the good Fate properties, like Fate Tiger Colosseum and Fate Grand Order.
Yeah,
So we have a
like
3-1
Tsukihime.
event,
Sorry.
which yeah, it's like Tsukihime, and the spin-off Kara no Kyokai. But we've got the where were we at? All right, 8,500 early play. If you resonate, and by resonate we mean we reveal a card from our hand, the 3-1 event counter Gem Sword
Jeweled
Zelrech.
Jeweled Sword
Uh,
Zelrech in English.
sure, that one. You get 3,000 power, and that lasts. How long does it last? Both turns, right?
Both turns, yeah. Until the end of
Yeah.
your opponent's
So
next turn. Yeah, yeah.
it is 11,500 early play, and it heals. So
Aces.
that's really strong. The only issue is that you have to commit slots for both the event and the early play, and it's not easy to dig for the event. You kind of just have to get it and hold it at some points. There is one way you can get it outside of the norm, which is using your bar supports to when you do your bar thing, you can maybe get it out of clock. But outside of that, you basically just have to draw it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If you get that, your reward is a 11-5 healing early play that can be recycled on an ongoing basis. And even if people do remove it conventionally, like if they run something such as if they're an opposing Fate deck, for example, or if they just have big cards to get over you, like standby decks might, uh, that's where Rider might come in because it's rare that any deck can just attack over without investing something, right?
You mean caster, but yeah, of course. That
Master, yeah,
is,
the
yeah,
2-1.
yeah. So it's very difficult. So just to get a grip on what our envisioned game plan was, the game plan was to get to play two early plays with the caster, and two 12-5 lanes with hand on core is actually I think it's pretty hard for most decks right now to deal with. Um,
Well, it's rather they can deal with it, but they have to put effort into doing so. And if you've been starving them, or at least punching them repeatedly with your other cards, it can disrupt their game plan to some degree.
yes, and the other factor in all of this is, of course, the way the caster transitions to level 3, which is quite beautifully. Um, you can
Changes into a restander.
changes into a restander that will also check top X on player or upon being changed into. Um, so the other side of this caster, actually, that Yue was quite fond of is so I think a lot of Fate players that end up playing a deck with Dark Sakura have experienced this kind of gameplay issue once or twice, and that is,
That shit's dark.
that is like the fact that she's not a healer, um, But if you're at 3-0 and you've sculpted and you have healers in your hand and also Dark Sakura's that you've sculpted for, there's really nothing else to play but the Dark Sakura's. And committing this card without any kind of safety net is kind of awkward because she's very small. She doesn't really do anything without, her door climax.
She cantrips and ruins your compression.
Yeah, she cantrips and ruins your compression. So, as a way to remedy this gameplay issue, Caster also works quite well because you can hand encore these. So the idea was that you would, play the dark. You're able to commit these Dark Sakura's to board in a game where you're forced to. Like you hit like you're 3-0 and you kind of just have nothing else to do but to play these. Play them down. You draw a door or two. If you draw 2 doors, you can go for the combo that turn. You can maybe Icy Tail if you want. Hand encore them back, and then change into the caster and use the caster's top check X effect to grab another door if you didn't have a second one already. Like kind of like the Telovru playstyle a little bit.
The two turn kill, right?
Yeah, the 2-turn kill.
Sometimes
that
you
is
just outright kill them as well. But
of course.
On that note, do you mind if I quickly add something?
Go ahead.
So on that note, a lot of people are pretty fed up with how bad the Sakura quote unquote Icy Tail is. The kill range is not particularly good. A lot of the time you will fall very short. Your opponent will often be left at like 3-5 or something, or 3-4, I think is a very common one to leave them at. And that's often because the opponent is not particularly compressed. And in these game states, you having an alternative finisher with reasonable reach is really good, because then you can punish people for being uncompressed. And if they ever try to compress in a meaningful way and have a good climax to non-climax ratio, then Icy Tail is much, much better, because you start to burn for 2, you start to burn for, well, it's rarely 3, but you'll consistently get burns, and you'll force them out of good compression, and you get the refresh damage, all of which contributes to an actually good killing turn. But if your opponent is like 7 in 31, they're probably not going to die to triple Icy Tail. But Caster is a restander, and restanders, just being a vanilla punch, are very effective into game states like that. The ceiling you reach with multiple instances of damage like that is much more consistent and is just a better finisher turn if you ever do get to that point.
In addition, it's also pretty easy to get the stock for the restander. It's a very stock efficient deck. If you use the Dark Sakura Climax combo.
Yeah, because you don't have to use the Icy Tail effect, because Dark Sakura's Climax combo is not actually the Icy Tail effect. It's just Blind Stock 3, right?
Yep. And the Icy Tail effect is pay 3 ditch 1.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just start the battle phase with 1 stock. So you have double Icy Tail, you have 1 restander. You just need to start the turn with 1 stock to restand that turn. Which is quite doable. Like talking realistically, that's like 7 stock. If you're just playing those cards, if you're hard playing those cards, 6 stock if you're changing into the caster, very, very reasonable resource usage at the top end for this deck.
Not to mention, if you're encoring cards, that's stock you're not expending for 2 soul attackers.
Yep.
Which is really good. It's stock you can spend on brainstorming in order to get your free fresh, or brainstorming in order to get some more deck control, or just setting up your end game.
And ironically though, this hand on core huge lane game plan does not really work against Hololive, ironically, but the game plan against, because I'm sure people will point that out if I don't address it right now.
Yeah, because they are specifically good at killing stuff like that, right?
Yeah, the Watame basically kind of shuts down like hand on core in general.
Yeah, and it just removes a character from the field.
And to that, the game plan against Hololive is just playing a regular 1k1 game, focusing more on the free fresh, treating the Rin as less of a commitment of resources and more of just like a disposable heal and 2 soul attacker. Yeah.
And you don't need to search for the caster or anything in that instance, do you?
No, you don't. Um,
And that goes back to what I said earlier about Fate, where if you wanted me to summarize what makes Fate a viable deck right now, the answer is it's a good free fresh deck. And against decks like Hololive, that really shows. You have literal, actual Azza, as in comes to play, mills for, discard out. You have the 2/1 free fresh, and you've got lots of ways to get it. You've got your combo, you've got multiple brainstorms, you've got a drop searcher even if you need that. It is a strong free fresh deck, and that really shows, especially where you don't need to wall up. And having that sort of inbuilt versatility in your game plan is another really useful thing to have, especially if once you're a bit more experienced with the deck and you know what the play patterns are, you know what your matchups are.
mm-hmm.
That being said, this deck is prohibitively expensive to get into, isn't it?
Probably. Base rarity?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I think I've seen decks sell for around 600, 500, 600 in that range, or that's what
I've
people are
seen
asking for it.
I've seen 800.
It's pretty crazy. And also definitely not like, it's not bang for your buck because you can just get another top 5 deck for under $200 at this point. So,
Mhm. Eight choice slime, which I maintain is probably
good deck.
the best or equal best deck in slime. That deck is probably very cheap now that there's been a reprint, right?
I don't know. I would have to check, but I would agree. I think Eight Choice Slime
Yeah,
is,
and Hololive obviously is probably pennies, right?
yes. You can get a place. Not forget the deck. You can get a playset. I think base rarity playset for
Obviously,
like around 100 or something. It's so
this
ridiculous. It's so low.
160 card deck, like it's not even a normal size set. It is a massive set, and it
Yes.
is super cheap because it was over opened, which is not
hmm
surprising to anybody.
Uh,
Uh,
we
but you
can
had
talk.
the Fate cards,
Yep.
so so Fate
Max
was a
rarity.
decent choice. Max
No,
rarity.
that was another thing
It,
that
it,
was
it
very
is
important to UA, by the way. Playing everyone showing up with max rarity decks.
the thing is you don't have maxed rarity here because I see two
Okay,
different forms of
okay.
the Arthur,
I mean,
and
I have
one
the original Azusa, you know,
yeah okay as long as your
and
spares are
no worlds
maxed, that's
PRs
what's
though.
important.
No worlds PRs, unfortunately. No,
Oh, so it's not
no
maxed.
worlds. It is technically not maxed, but
It's not maxed.
those worlds PRs are like 2K, 3K a pop.
So it's not
I'm good,
maxed.
man.
All
I'm
right, we get
good.
it.
I'm good, man. I That is not a question I need answered.
Fake fan.
Uh, let's see. As far as what I would change, with would it be too much to go through like a basic overview of what happened that day? It's not that interesting, honestly. The deck mostly performed to expectation. Uh, there were some very unfortunate losses on the day that a lot of people witnessed and had some fun with at my expense, but that happens. It's wise. I will say the caster came up. So obviously it doesn't come up in the Hololive matchup, and I played against a few Hololives. It also does not come up against Kaguya, which I played a surprising amount of games against. Mainly because Shirogane just kind of
Ignores
deals
it.
with the clock kick just kind of deals with the Hano core in hand.
Well, I mean, at this point, if they use the clock kick, that's an enormous amount of resource expended. So you don't even care about that, do you?
I think I do. It's like a hand sculpt. Hand sculpting, it's still a cost to hand sculpt this card, and also a cost to
Yeah,
set up the blue sometimes.
The cost to Kaguya to actually set all that up and then actually use resources on clock kick is not nothing. That's a huge investment for them.
Right, but I could just play a normal game plan.
Yeah. You don't have
Instead.
to play Ringe against them.
Yeah, there is a lot of room for flexibility in the way you approach these matchups. So what I ended up going for is not going for caster in those matchups because I felt like even double Rin early play is pretty likely to live without the caster against Kaguya specifically. So there's that. The caster was at its most important against that Sal matchup, actually. They were playing Berkuli. So, for those that don't know about this card, this card is like a 2-1 10k, I think. Essentially a 2-1 10k.
Yes, I think that's what ignore the text, and that's what it probably is.
It's a
But that's
2-1
not the important part
10k.
of the card.
Yeah. Well, okay, the 10k is actually pretty important, but the other thing the card does, you can when your opponent plays a climax, you can pay 2, ditch 2 to send the character across from this card to the waiting room. And it stops basically all climax combos in that lane, which is quite annoying. Like, okay, number one, you don't get the attack. First things first. You don't get to attack in that lane because you don't get to play more cards after you've played your climax, which is when Berkuli activates. But the other thing is you don't get your climax combos, which is also very annoying for this deck, right? The aim is to get either triple Sakura or double Sakura plus Restander, and Berkuli just kind of, stomps all over that. So against Sal, or specifically Sal decks running this Berkuli card, there are a lot of ways to give this Berkuli power, by the way, which is quite annoying. It's like a pretty big card. My chosen game plan against that deck was to present strong lanes as soon as I hit level 2, and to maintain them as best as I could with the caster. And the caster is actually quite phenomenal for this matchup because the
power line is just hard for them to get over, right?
Power line's hard, and then even if they get over one of the lanes with Berkuli, I just hand on core the Rin back, and then we're back into the same situation where the Sal player has to find another answer for one of the Rins. So the caster was quite important in that matchup.
And it's not like they have an easy way to remove the Rins unless you play into their Berkuli, right?
Yeah, they don't. It is just Berkuli or bust, basically. And if they Berkuli a Rin, I'm mostly okay with that, I guess.
I mean, it's a lot of resources expended,
yes.
And you are a fairly resource-efficient deck, so you don't mind the crush too much.
Yeah. So that was like the one matchup of the day where it was like super important, the caster. The Ranshiro put in work all day, though. That card is really good right now. I sent a lot of Nenes to the waiting room that day. Denied a lot of memory. Obviously, there's that story with the condition for the 3-2 Asuna that occurred. But in general, that card is just a super good enabler for the bar combo, and also just in general for the deck's ability to reverse lanes throughout the course of the game. It's so
at
good.
At absolute bottom rate, that's like an effective 2k pump to something if you have a climax.
Yes.
And if they do have anything that will outright die to you tapping and negging, this is tap to give a character 1 soul.
Yes.
And win
Very
that
powerful.
lane for free.
That happened a few times too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for older players, or honestly for anybody, there's a reason that they very rarely print soul assists or tap to give something 1 soul. It's just a really powerful effect in a game where, like, games in Weiss last between, on average, 6 to 9 turns. So affecting 1 attack is actually pretty significant when you think about it. And being able to do that without any cost every turn, possibly, because they're not always going to field like 500 power characters. But having that ability means that it is really difficult for them to play characters like that.
Yes, it effectively just kind of blanks a lot of those cards. And this is not a deck that people prepare for. Guaranteed. Like, this is not a deck that people build for because they can't afford to, right? You can't like
assume there's going to be a Fate player.
Yeah, you can't just assume that, well, but what if I play against Fate? I shouldn't play this amazing this deck that runs this really important like level 0 card. Like, you can't say that. Like, it's just not a thing that's going to come up. So
there's just not many decks that run the 500 power removal bombs, are there?
Like playable, like ones that you can run at 4? No. There are quite a few of those in Japanese actually, which is interesting. Um, or a
I'm pretty
lot
sure Don
of
mm,
Danmachi.
go on. Danmachi does actually have one, which is a drop searcher as well. That
Sure.
might be very strong in English, actually.
Watch out for Danmachi, I guess.
I mean, that
That
deck's just gonna
sounds
it's gonna take names. Deck is
that
gonna freaking take names,
is
man.
it 1K power or 500 power?
I'm pretty sure it's 500 power. I
If
would need to
it's
check.
so difference is actually quite significant.
It's 500 power.
Okay. That's good. Because 1K power is a
Yeah,
little awkward. So I guess a
because you
nice
miss on like
segue
you miss on aquas
in the
the
sides and
in the sides. Yeah.
yeah, also Nene as well. You can't send them to different zone.
Yep. But the
Um
she is 500 power, so that's good.
yeah, very good for a bomb to be. And on that note, it's a nice segue into like what I would change upon reflection after the event. You know, after talking about the deck with a few people. Uh,
You would play Danmachi instead because it's the same deck.
ah, got me. You
I'm
got
kidding.
me.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You're
Uh,
playing a very you're playing a very different version to the deck that I jokingly regard as the same as Danmachi. So
right.
you go on.
I would probably cut the Shiro bombs. For like +1 Shiro Rider and then like an Ilya healer, and also think about one thing that was kind of awkward on the day was having a jewel to make sure the event was live. It didn't actually come up, which I'm thankful for. Like, it didn't come up where like I needed the event and I didn't have a jewel on board, but you know, I could definitely see game states
Second
where
Amagi or something.
yeah, probably second Amagi or like a brainstorm maybe. That would be a little awkward. But yeah, something like that. Ilya, of course. Want Ilya because just the flexibility of being able to divvy out your resources. It's like is very nice. So
Which
like
Ilya are
for
you talking about?
the Ilya healer, like one Ilya healer or
Yep.
something would be good. Mainly because you can just like for example, if you have 3 stock, you can heal twice, right? That's something you can't do
Yep.
in this list currently. If you have 3 stock, you can play Dark Sakura, you can play Ilya. There's a lot of different things you can do with like different amounts of stock once you have Ilya in the list. So
Yep.
that is like another card
Ilya
I would
is
try to.
just for everyone. Ilya is a stock healer, so to speak. You can when it comes to play, you can ditch one to send one card from clock to stock.
Yeah, the
That's all you need to know about the card.
bottom card of clock to stock. But yeah,
Bottom card of
yeah,
clock to stock. Yes.
just a very flexible card. Um, so those are the changes I would consider making. Um, but apart from that, I mean, there's definitely room for improvement here. Like as I mentioned before, I UA, and I guess I also feel like there is probably a way to fit the Shiro Global Clock Encore in here, but you know, that
It doesn't seem too difficult. I think you probably just cut here and there. Oh, the 1-0 Sakura bomb. How did that go for you?
oh yeah, I mean, I like it. I think it's
Sure.
important because having a costless way to access your waiting room is like honestly pretty important. It turns bars into salvages. Um, it turns any climax you draw that you don't have to play into a salvage. I think it's quite good in conjunction with Dark Sakura. That's like another thing. So like, and the reason why is because if you have a bomb in your hand, you essentially have full access to your waiting room for free as you're navigating your finisher turn. So it really helps with hand sculpting because it's essentially an extra copy in hand uh, of your finisher of any other level 3 that you might want to play, while also being like kind of like insulator against like bad luck. So it's a card you can just play and attack with at any point in time. Unlike if you sculpted the level 3 instead, right?
Yeah.
I think it's very
So
important. I think cards like this are like pretty important for a deck that runs like a cantripping level 3.
yeah, it gives you some not only access to the waiting room, but it can be quote unquote delayed. So if you feel that you don't know exactly what you need yet, you don't know how the game's going to go, you don't know if you're going to cancel
Yes.
next round, you can get this, and then as long as you have a climax, your decision has effectively been
Mm-hmm.
delayed. And like the 1-0 clock bomb is not useless either. Like there's still some matchups where
Oh
If you
yeah,
field it, your opponent's going to have a real bad day. Like,
Hololive.
just to give some
You know,
context.
just to dump on Hololive some more. This card is so good against Hololive. They can never attack into it with the card that they uh kick out with the polka, the 1-0 polka. They're never, because they're not going to get the memory if they just reverse it.
Yeah, it just goes away. Uh, I think that to give a little bit of context, this card was one of the reasons why 8-Bar Fate was so dominant in Japan when things got to the point that they needed a ban list. And Tom here is a big proponent of that. He took that same deck and did quite well at the US Nationals with it. So having two here is a different function to having the four that they used to play, but that doesn't make it any less problematic for decks that are weak to it, such as Hololive, such as Pants Store Slime. The list does go on a little bit,
Any
but
deck, it's also quite effective against like the bounce back cards. So like the 1-0 Yotsuba, the 1-0 Luna from Hololive, or 1-0 Yotsuba from Quintuplets, the
oh god,
1-0 Luna from
this is
Hololive.
great against It's great against Yotsuba, isn't it?
Yes, you
Oh,
clock
that's
bomb
funny.
that card, and they no longer get to deny your reverses,
Anything.
assuming that it's in the
Mm.
front. Assuming it's in the front, but like who's gonna put this? Who's gonna put that card in the back? Like against fate.
I
Like,
mean,
and if you put it in the back, you're not even plussing anymore. You're
exactly.
just
You're
like
not plus if you do that.
you're just denying me a plus, which is like, sure, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
card with a
I
lot
mean
of
that.
unexpected utility, I think,
Hmm.
is how I'd put it.
Did you miss the 2-1 rider, which is another? Well, there are
Mm,
multiple 2-1 riders that are really strong in Fate right now in conventional builds. There is the 2-1 that refunds a stock if it gets a reverse on a high level character, and also scales up to like, it's like what, 12, 5, 13k or something.
13k
Uh
without climax, yeah, on the third attack.
yes, yes. And
Did
there's also
I?
another 2-1 rider which removes traits, which
Right.
might be better in the future, but right now I'm it's only fine. How
Did
did
I
you feel
miss
not
it?
running them?
I don't know if I missed it that much, if I'm gonna be completely honest.
Sure.
I only played against one Mushoku on the day, and how that game played out. Like, for the most part, I was playing against like kind of like dinky 1k1 decks that I could just reverse with like with the help of Rider Shiro, and the free fresh was often good enough to reverse some lanes at level 2 as well. So I don't know if I missed it that much. Um, it is
Yeah, but
something I would
it sounds
consider
like
running in the future, I guess.
your matchup spread was angled in a way that it wasn't a particularly big issue.
Yes.
I think that if I were to run Fate in a more targeted tournament like singles, I definitely think I'd be running the Rider 2-1, but
Yeah.
that means you can't fit the game plan that you guys crafted.
I think that's another potential room for improvement. Trying to fit the 2-1 rider in there, like one copy or something. What was it? So the Mushoku game I played ended up being kind of like the 2-1 rider would have been nice, but not like super great, because what ended up happening was I basically confirmed that they had a second Eris climax combo in their hand. My first level, like my first turn attacking into the Erises, so I just felt like it was a complete waste of time, because they had salvaged so many counters. I felt like it was a complete waste of time to try and start reversing their board, because even if I did reverse their board, it was just like a game state where they would just build back up their resources quite easily with the second combo. So
Hmm.
that does happen occasionally against these standby matchups where they invest so many toolboxing opportunities into like counters and whatnot, so you can just kind of like ignore the board for the rest of the game, and then those counters in their hand become blanks, which is kind of funny. My opponent had to like ditch 5 for hand size the following turn as well, which is I found very amusing.
Yeah, at a certain point, advantage is no longer advantage, right?
Yeah. And so like Rider would have been nice, but not like super great, right? It's not backbreaking there, because my opponent had the hand configuration to just kind of shrug off any attempts to control the game pace by, reversing the board consistently. So,
Yeah.
did I miss it?
There are times where Mushoku just does that. They just high roll, and winning one lane is no longer anything that wins the game against them.
Did I miss
climax?
So yeah, I don't know. I think the answer to that question is a little complicated. It's like kind of game state dependent, which as it should be, because the rider itself is also kind of a game state dependent card. But I don't think I disagree that if I took this deck to singles, if anybody's trying to take this deck to singles, you should try and consider putting at least 1 2-1 rider, the big one from Heaven's Feel 1 in there. Just at 1 is fine, maybe 2, depending on your tolerance for risk. Would be good. I guess we can talk about, that's a nice segue into like thinking about the future, I guess, with regards to Fate. For the fall.
Are you going to play Fate in the fall?
Probably not.
No.
But that's not because I don't love Fate anymore. It's because a new series is coming to town, and I think that deck is ridiculous, and its name is Quintessential Quintuplets Volume 2, baby. Let's go. Oh, it's not Volume 2. It's a double flat or something.
Yeah. So fake Fate fan simps for bad harem series, dead to Danmachi.
Not dead to Danmachi, dude.
You're unfavored. You're unfavored.
I don't think it's unfavored at all. We'll see, though. We'll see. I'll have to put my money where my mouth is. Honestly, I think
you're not gonna run into Danmachi. You're gonna run into bad MTI players, and you're gonna pretend that means that you won your moral points.
If that does come to pass, it'd be so funny. But yeah, I'm probably playing Quintessential Quintuplets. And that's not a knock on.
No, it is probably the best deck in format. I don't think that is a particularly contentious take. I think that right now, where things stand, Fate is a contender for top 5, and that is all I am willing to say at this point. Because like the top 2 are solidified. Everything below that is like kind of whatever. And that includes Slime. Slime is kind of whatever. But when Quints comes in, it is undisputedly going to be one of the best decks. And the only decks that will have any real game against it are the 1k1 soul decks. Because Quints beats every other standby deck. I don't think that's particularly contentious. So it's basically going to be 1k1 soul decks versus Quints. I don't know how good Bang Dream is against it. I assume it's not that good because of how big Nino gets. Like, I just assume it's very annoying.
Interesting matchup for sure. I'm not sure how it'll. I think it'll be hard. Like, it essentially becomes like a hand-on core resource race, I guess, which is kind of boring, and also kind of lame because both players are gonna be playing with like low cards in hand. But I think Quints also wins out when it's forced to play like that, and the opponent is also playing the same way. So,
Yeah, I think going forward, the best decks will be Quints, and then Bang Dream and probably Danmachi are up there. Like, I actually think Danmachi is that good.
I think Mushoku will be pretty good too. Depending on how much Danmachi is going to be played. I don't know if it's going to be played to a significant degree. Like it's. I think my impression of Danmachi is that it's going to be a really nice deck for like meta chasers or like meta readers to play. But I don't know how popular it's going to be in general. Specifically, because
you underestimate how many people like this stupid, shitty pseudo shonen series. Like,
maybe
people like this show.
Maybe I feel isn't it a little outdated in that respect though? Like, is anybody?
It literally got a new season last year and the year before that, and it has an upcoming season.
All right. Well, anyways, I think as far as like how I think Fate will be in this upcoming season, I think it'll still have a place. As long as Hololive is played, as long as there's an interesting topic we can talk about, in future episodes, like are they going to port the Mushoku restrictions to English? And when, like, and if they are, when, right? If Mushoku gets kind of addressed, I think Fate will be in a stronger position for fall than it was in spring. But that is also, of course, dependent on how much Hololive is being played. But I think as long as the meta is like kind of slanted towards 1K1 decks, which I think it might be, with Danmachi, with Hololive still being very strong, or not
And Bang
strong, but
Dream.
like very well represented. Yeah, Bang Dream as well. I think Fate will always have a place. It's not going to be the best at everything it does, except for the denial against Hololive. But
It
I think that's
it has
okay.
a silver bullet. It has a silver bullet against Quince at least, forcing you to get those Ninos back by removing traits, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
That's
Turns off
that I
hand on
think would
core.
be, yeah.
Sure.
And then it just kills because you're like what 8K on defense or something.
It's like I think Quince is still favored because like Fate can't really do anything about
I
the
think so too.
level 3 board, right? Or the
I
level 2
think Quince
board.
is still favored in. I think Quince is still favored in that matchup. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm just
Also,
saying
the cost 0 1
there's
1 puts in so much work against
mhm.
any Fate build, any 1K1 deck in general. Actually, um,
The costs the 1/1 that actually completely dies to Ryder if it gets to that point, but I think that's a bit too late.
yeah, I think at that point, it's been out since level 0. It's gotten so many it's gotten you like 2, 3
Like I don't
pluses. So
I mean the pluses don't matter. The pluses were never the issue in these matches. Like we just 1K1 soul players, if you're playing Quince in the future, just assume they're going to get their pluses. The way you win is by outpacing them. That is how you beat them.
yeah, but it's a
That's how Danmachi beats Quince, and
right.
that's
But
what
Danmachi
people
has
don't
the
seem to
benefit
understand.
of not relying on reverses for its advantage. That's like a thing, right? Like Hololive, most builds of Hololive can't like if they can't get reverses, it's kind of hard. Same for Fate, right? But I guess I would also strongly consider the Rin combo in Fall if I were playing Fate. Um,
There is a 1/1 rider, which is like
oh my
not
god,
the
dude,
worst thing I've ever seen, right?
not that, please. I mean,
Well,
maybe.
you're just saying that because it beats your deck.
I mean, maybe. I mean, sure, and you can search Ricky for your brainstorm. Is that's what that does? I think
Yes, I believe so, but it
something
also
like that.
costs one already.
Yes, you're paying two
Um,
star. You're playing one for the paying one for the character, and then paying one clocking the top card of your deck, to Ricky for the brainstorm or the bomb.
one
Actually,
zero clock bomb. It's 1/0 clock bomb.
you know what? Sure, maybe that card is all right, but this is
I I put in a deck before it came up not at all.
nice.
Anyway, so Fate going forward is still probably a fine deck, but you shouldn't go out and buy it. It costs way too much money right now.
Yeah,
Like
play it because you like
the
the
really
series.
there are really important cards which just cost too much money. Like the 2/1 free fresh is too important, and it costs money. The 0/0 brainstorm is something you need to have access to, even if you aren't playing level 1 green, and that costs way too much money. And like the 1/0 Sakura combo, like you talk about the choices if everyone has the choice, but
Wait,
paying
is that
for a 1/0 on reverse search, paying that much money for it, it's expensive.
wait, is it
I don't
really?
know exactly how much it is. Yeah, it's expensive just because it was in Heavensfield 1.
Reprint
Uh,
when, by the way?
never ever. Fate is dead. The 1/0 Sakura combo is too expensive for most people and not clearly better than the 1/0 Rin from the new set. So I just think that if you want to play Fate, you need to really like Fate Stay Night, or you should just settle for playing Fate Grand Order Camelot, which is, by the way, also a really solid deck. Like it's a side grade to Sunshine, basically, and Sunshine is also a top 5 contender.
Oh my
Only,
god.
well, hmm? Oh my god, how expensive it is.
The brainstorm is $60 a pop right now. What the
Yeah,
heck?
you didn't know?
No,
Yeah, like
I
yeah,
the level 1 combo is $20 a copy.
yeah.
Holy,
I told you. I told you.
these are like JKTCG prices.
Look at how expensive the level 0 stock bomb and Avenger and Prefresh are. They're all really
Oh
expensive.
my god.
This is why people don't play
Interesting.
Fate. It's not because Fate is like terrible. It's because it is not clearly better than the next best option at the price point.
Ugh. $25
You could
for
play like
Shiro Bomb.
yeah, and that's not even a card people play these days. So there you go. Fate, you've got the inside scoop on someone who actually put their money where their mouth is, played Fate, topped with a somewhat unorthodox build, and that is the opinion of Fate going forward. It is probably not great into the coming BDIF, but it's okay because Danmachi will kill all the Quint Simps and it'll be fine. They'll just die to climaxes being played every single turn.
Oh,
That's just how it goes.
I just remembered something. Personal record. I went 4-2 in Swiss and then lost in top 8. We got swept in top 8, so the loss didn't
Happens.
matter. The
Happens.
first two
Happens.
losses were just like ridiculous. It was like, you know, like the deck was doing its thing. I was like mid level 2, opponent was mid level 3, and I just die with like, and I had good compression. I didn't even do the typical Fate thing of like barring a climax or whatever. That didn't happen. I actually just straight up died from mid level 2 in those two losses, and then rest of the day it was like totally, you know, everything was fine.
So basically, you
if
were
anybody was
outskilled and then you
if
got good.
if anybody was wondering what like if anybody was wondering if like, you know, I pulled my weight, I did, you know. Um so there's that.
Oh, so it sounded like a good tournament all round.
Yeah, it was quite fun. Apart from the weather, Houston's weather is very illegal, and needless to say I was very happy to come back to California. Uh not that I don't not that I of course enjoyed my time very much spending time with the people in Houston. Great community. Love the people there. Um but not being able to do anything outside, it was crazy, dude. So the locals, so there was a Saturday locals the day before the tournament. It was so huge. It was like 60 people, right?
Because everyone's in town for regionals.
And it was good practice, of course. Well, I didn't UA and I did not play the decks we were gonna play for the tournament. You know, small edges.
Of course not.
But what happened was the AC broke after like round 1. So it's like 60 people in like it wasn't a small store, but it definitely wasn't big enough to like, and it had enough room for everybody at the tables. It's just, you know, it's just unbearable, you know? Like I think a lot of people actually just dropped after the AC broke. It was that bad.
These pathetic Californian snowflakes and their inability to tolerate intolerable weather. I don't get you guys.
I didn't drop, by the way, so you know, I stayed for the entire thing. But yeah, it was so bad. It was so bad. Like we were playing, I was playing, and it's super hot, super sweaty, and I try to go outside. You know, you think going outside would help? No, it's even worse. It's even worse. You know, think about that, guys. Think about, you know, it being like, you know, what, 80, 85 degrees Fahrenheit inside, maybe super sweaty, super humid. You go outside, it's like 10 degrees hotter and like 10% more humid. Awful. It was so bad.
Wait,
I do not.
85 is, wait.
Inside?
Inside? Oh, I guess inside is pretty bad. Yeah, sure.
2 Celsius. It was bad, guys.
It's 30 Celsius. 85
yeah,
is 30 Celsius.
30 Celsius.
You add
like
10 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, yeah, I do not blame people for leaving. It was so ghastly. So bad. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun meeting people and stuff. Hope to come back for BCS, maybe. Fingers crossed, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was a good tournament. I think it was good summary of why you picked your deck, a good breakdown of some of the reasons you picked it, and maybe a bit of inspiration for people trying to angle at common decks like Hololive, exploiting specific cards you see in all builds, even though it is a fairly unpredictable deck.
Mm-hmm.
Have you got any shout outs for anyone who might have attended the tournament that you
Sure. Sure. Shout out to Dan Trin, aka Dan's Ranch, aka he's
keep it safe
awesome.
for work, please?
No,
Okay.
he's I'm just gonna leave it at that. Shout out to Ryan, Jason, my missing people, Hanson, Carmen, you know, Pittsburgh Weiss, all those people that showed up. It was great. Uh, you know, um, what else? Shout out to Wild Wild Weiss. I actually roomed with them for the weekend. They were so nice. You know, shout out to Tim and Jonathan. You guys were great. It was so cool meeting you guys and spending time with you. We had some fun playing Mafia. Tim is a great storyteller. Uh, I was very surprised. Very funny guy. Uh, you know, and then shout out to, I guess, I don't know. Shout out to Infinity Cards. You know, hosting that many people, definitely not easy. Um,
Great. I think if we continued, we'd be here all day because it sounds like
yeah,
you had a
there,
really good time, hey?
yeah. I had a lot of fun. So, you know,
Yeah.
there's
I'm sure that anyone who has been forgotten, feel free to direct grudges at him in the comments, or you
ah,
can PM him directly. That'll be funny. Try to time it for when it's like 3 a.m. at his time. That'd be great.
mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think that we can come to call it a show there. It's been cool. And now that we're on Spotify as well, that's kind of neat, I suppose. Um uh I will be getting a proper mic as of next week, so hopefully that will ease pressures on Tom here, who has to do the relatively minor editing that we subject our casts to. But otherwise, as always, you can get us on the usual socials, Discord, Facebook, whatever. Happy to get any feedback. Happy to talk about anything that you think might be reasonable. We'll have some other cool and possibly controversial topics coming up. We're still brainstorming them. But if you have any specific suggestions, feel free to hit us up. And other than that, have you got anything else you want to talk to our loyal listener base to about?
I guess they are loyal. We got some very nice
Yeah, man.
comments on the first upload of this podcast. So, you know, we appreciate every one of you. Uh, hopefully, we'll get our audio stuff worked out very promptly. Hopefully by the next episode, but not guaranteeing anything. But no, I have nothing else to say besides, you know, expressing gratitude towards everybody that actually listened to a bunch of
Yeah,
boomers.
that's it. Yeah, I think it's cool. So thank you again, everyone, for listening. Just like Tom said, and we will see you, talk to you, hear you something in the next one. And bye.
Bye bye.